My parents told me they were too broke to save my daughter. 7 days later, they paid cash for my brother's new house. My mother said Lily was not really a Parker, while my 6-year-old sat in the passenger seat outside their living room window with a coloring book on her lap. My father kept the television on low, the way he always did when he wanted cruelty to sound casual, and my brother's name sat in the room like a crown nobody was allowed to touch. I remember the smell of lemon furniture polish, the soft tick of the mantel clock, and the exact number I had written on the folded hospital estimate in my purse. $182,400. That was the price of the clinical trial at Cincinnati Children's. Not a miracle, not a promise, just a door that might open if I could get my daughter through it in time. They closed it. 3 years later, at 2:17 in the morning, my mother grabbed my wrist in a hospital waiting room and begged me to save my brother's life. Jason's liver was destroyed. His skin was the color of old wax. His body was full of poison, and the transplant coordinator had just explained that a living donor could move faster than the waiting list. My father looked at me like I was a tool he had misplaced and suddenly found. My mother whispered, "Claire, please, you're his sister. You're his only match." I looked down at her fingers digging into my skin. Then I peeled them off one by one. The doctor asked if I was refusing the evaluation. I gave my mother the same 3 words she gave my daughter. Not my problem. My name is Claire Parker. I am 36 years old, and I read financial documents for a living. Insurance subrogation, estate claims, beneficiary disputes, quiet little files full of numbers people hope nobody will line up in the right order. I know the moment a figure stops being a figure and becomes a confession. I know how a date can be louder than a scream. This story began on a Tuesday morning in the records department of Northbridge Mutual, on the 8th floor of a glass building in Columbus, Ohio. The break room coffee smelled burnt, the copy machines were coughing paper dust into the air, and I was reviewing an old estate cleanup file that should have been nothing more than a policy adjustment. My supervisor dropped it on my desk because I was the person who never missed a decimal. That was my reputation. Useful. The file belonged to my grandfather, Arthur Whitaker. He had been dead for almost 2 years by then, and the family had finished mourning him in exactly the way my family mourned anyone who could no longer benefit them. They took the casserole dishes, divided the furniture, praised his work ethic, and stopped saying his name. I opened the folder expecting a death certificate, an appraisal, maybe a small accidental policy rider. Instead, I found a trust document. At first, my brain refused to understand it. The words were ordinary enough, printed in clean black type on cream legal paper, but they arranged themselves into something that made the office go silent around me. Arthur L. Whitaker, Children's Medical Trust, established 14 months before his death. Beneficiary, Lily Grace Parker. Purpose, medical treatment, health, education, welfare, and survivorship support. Funded amount, $228,750. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, slower, because the number kept becoming my daughter's face. Lily had been 6 when she died. She had freckles across her nose, a laugh that started quietly and then escaped all at once, and a habit of drawing houses with yellow doors because she said yellow meant somebody happy lived inside. We rented a 1-bedroom apartment over a laundromat in Reynoldsburg, and every Thursday night, while the dryer shook the floorboards under us, she would point at the ceiling and tell me our future house would not make that sound. I told her she could pick the door. She picked yellow. When leukemia came, it came without drama at first. Tired mornings, bruises I could not explain, a fever that went away and then returned like it had remembered something. The word acute sat in the oncologist's mouth like a stone, and everything after that became fluorescent lights, sanitizer, plastic bracelets, insurance codes, and the soft beep of machines counting time I could feel slipping away. We fought for 8 months. Chemotherapy, remission, relapse, prayers I did not believe in but said anyway because desperation is not picky. Then her doctor told me there was one more option, an immunotherapy trial with real results for children like Lily. The cost was $182,400 up front, excluding travel and lodging. I made $84,000 a year. I had $11,300 in savings. I had no rich husband, no backup plan, no family that had ever chosen me first. So I went to my parents. Helen and Richard Parker lived in Fairview Heights, 25 minutes from Columbus, in a brick colonial with black shutters and a front porch nobody used. My mother kept porcelain birds in the dining room cabinet and treated them with more tenderness than she had ever shown my daughter. My father had owned a flooring business for 32 years, and he had spent all 32 years telling people that family was everything. By family, he meant Jason. Jason was my younger brother, the golden child with a smile broad enough to hide almost any debt. When he crashed a car, my parents called it bad luck. When he lost a job, they blamed the manager. When he got drunk at a Little League fundraiser and insulted the coach's wife, my mother said he was under pressure. He could turn a failure into a family emergency within 3 minutes, and everyone would reach for their wallets. I was the wallet. I was also the ride, the spreadsheet, the apology letter, the emergency contact, the person who remembered passwords and due dates, and which cousin had a gluten allergy. I had built my life around being dependable, because dependable girls are told that love is waiting on the other side of usefulness. I believed that longer than I should have. Lily cured me. That night in my parents' living room, I placed the estimate on the coffee table. My mother stared at it like I had put something dirty on her glass. My father muted the television, but did not turn it off. I explained the trial, the deadline, the response rate, the hospital deposit, and the fact that Lily's doctor believed it was her last real chance. My voice stayed level. If it cracked, I would have cracked with it. My mother folded her hands in her lap. Claire, we cannot spare that kind of money. I said I was not asking for the whole amount. I said I would sell my car, empty my retirement, work nights, do anything. I said Lily was 6 years old. My father sighed the way men sigh when they want to sound practical instead of cruel. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, he said. Then my mother looked toward the window, where Lily's small shape moved behind the glass, and gave me the sentence that cut the last thread between us. She was never really one of ours. I stared at her. She kept going. Her father was nobody. You chose that life. Do not expect us to bankrupt ourselves because you made poor decisions. I asked her if she understood what she was saying. She looked me directly in the eye. Not my problem. 3 words. I took the estimate back, walked outside, buckled Lily's seatbelt, and drove home with both hands on the wheel. She asked if Grandma was coming to visit her at the hospital. I told her Grandma was busy. Lily looked out the window for a while and said, "She's not busy. She just doesn't like me." Children know. That same week, my parents bought Jason a house on Maple Ridge Drive. 4 bedrooms, finished basement, white cabinets, quartz counters, no mortgage. The housewarming party was on a Sunday afternoon in April, under a sky so bright it felt insulting. I should not have gone, but Jason called me himself and said Mom wanted the whole family there. I had been awake for 36 hours arranging fundraising posts and hospital calls, and some stupid, starved part of me thought maybe if they saw Lily in her knit cap, thin and polite and still smiling, they would remember she was a child. They remembered exactly what they wanted to remember. My mother found my phone open to Lily's fundraiser on the kitchen island. I had been updating the page because a stranger in Oregon had donated $75 with a note that said, "For the yellow door." My mother picked up the phone, raised it like a toast, and laughed loud enough for the room to turn. "Look at this," she said. "Claire is begging strangers for a child who isn't even family." Someone chuckled. Then someone else did. The sound spread across that brand-new kitchen, bouncing off the quartz my daughter's chance had apparently paid for, though I did not know that yet. Lily tugged my sleeve and asked why everyone was laughing. I picked her up even though she was getting too heavy for my tired arms, and I told her we were going to get ice cream. 92 days later, she died. The hospice room smelled like lavender spray and plastic tubing. I hated the lavender most because it was trying too hard to be gentle. Lily's yellow door drawing was taped to the bed rail, curling at the edges. Near the end, when her voice was barely more than breath, she asked if we could still get our house someday. I said yes. Absolutely. I lied because love sometimes does that at the end. After the funeral, my parents sent flowers. The card said, "Thinking of you." Jason did not come because he had a work thing, which was family language for a hangover or a golf game. I put Lily's hospital bracelets, drawings, and one lock of soft brown hair into a blue shoebox, pushed it onto the top shelf of my closet, and became very good at functioning. That is what quiet people do. We function until the truth finds us. When I found the trust document at work 3 years later, I did not scream. I closed the folder, told my supervisor I felt sick, and drove home with my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. Then I took down Lily's yellow door drawing from the fridge, laid it on my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. Numbers are obedient when people are not. The trust named my mother as trustee. That meant she had legal control of the money, but control is not ownership. A trustee is a caretaker, not a queen. Every dollar had one purpose: Lily's benefit. Medical care, education, welfare, survival. Not my brother's kitchen, not my parents' pride. Not a gift wrapped in lies. I requested the full trust accounting from the Columbus law firm that had handled my grandfather's estate. They made me fill out 3 forms, show 2 IDs, and wait 17 business days. During those 17 days, I slept poorly, worked carefully, and started a red binder on my kitchen table. Red for the door nobody opened. The accounting arrived in a flat envelope on a Thursday. Rain ticked against my window, the radiator hissed under the sill, and coffee burned untouched in the mug beside my hand. The trust opened with $228,750. For nearly 18 months, it sat there with small interest deposits, quiet and waiting. Then, on April 3rd, one withdrawal left the account. $191,600. Memo line blank. 2 days later, the county recorder filed the deed for Jason's house on Maple Ridge Drive. Purchase price, $184,900. Closing fees, transfer tax, title insurance, and recording fees, $6,482. Total, $191,382. I said the numbers out loud in my empty kitchen. They did not just refuse to save Lily. They stole the money my grandfather left to save her and used it to buy Jason a house. I found an attorney named Patricia Vale in a converted gray house near the Franklin County Courthouse. Her office smelled like old paper, peppermint tea, and floor wax. She had silver hair cut blunt at her jaw and a way of listening that made silence feel useful. I laid out the trust, the withdrawal, the deed, the dates, the funeral card, the fundraiser screenshot, and the promissory note I had found stapled to the back of the accounting. That note was their costume. It claimed Lily's trust had loaned Jason money for a down payment, repayable over 15 years at 2% interest. It was dated April 2nd, 1 day before the withdrawal. My mother had signed as trustee. Jason had signed as borrower. The witness line carried my father's signature. My grandfather had been dead for 6 months. Patricia read everything twice. Then she removed her glasses and placed them on the desk. "Your mother had a legal duty to use that money for Lily," she said. "Not for Jason, not for herself, not for family harmony. Lily." I asked what the dates meant. "They mean your family left fingerprints on the theft." Then she tapped the promissory note. "And this may mean fraud." We filed to remove my mother as trustee, confirm me as successor trustee, recover diverted funds, impose a constructive trust on the Maple Ridge property, and refer the forged loan documents for investigation. Patricia also flagged the tax issue. My parents had not reported a gift. Jason had not reported a loan properly. The note had been backdated around estate funds. Once the court record opened, the IRS and the State Attorney General's Charity and Trust Unit would have a roadmap. My mother thought court was a room where feelings mattered. She was wrong. Court is a room where dates matter. The first hearing was in September. The hallway outside probate court smelled like wet wool and vending machine coffee. My mother arrived in a cream coat and pearls, dressed like a woman who expected sympathy to be admitted as evidence. My father wore his good navy suit. Jason came late, smelling faintly of cologne and stale beer, and leaned against the wall as if the building itself bored him. My red binder sat on my lap. My mother saw it and laughed under her breath. "Still making little school projects, Claire?" she said. I looked at her for a moment, then opened the binder to the first tab. I did not answer. Patricia had taught me that silence can be more expensive than speech when the other side cannot stop filling it. Inside the courtroom, my mother's attorney tried to make the story about grief. He called me unstable, obsessed, unable to accept my daughter's death. He suggested the house had been part of a family understanding and that my grandfather would have wanted unity. He used the word healing 3 times. The judge looked tired by the second one. Then Patricia stood. She did not raise her voice. She did not pound the table. She walked the court through the dates, as if she were laying stepping stones across a river. January 14, trust funded. October 9, Arthur Whitaker deceased. February 6, Lily's oncologist issues clinical trial estimate. March 28, Claire requests family assistance. April 3, $191,600 withdrawn from Lily's trust. April 5th, Jason Parker's property closes in cash. July 6th, Lily Parker dies. The room got quieter with every date. Patricia placed the trial estimate beside the deed. She placed the trust purpose beside the promissory note. She placed Lily's beneficiary line beside Jason's signature. Then she said, "This was not a misunderstanding. This was a medical trust for a dying child turned into a private real estate fund." My mother's face changed. Not guilt. Calculation. Jason shifted in his chair and whispered something to my father. My father told him to be quiet, but too late. The court reporter's fingers kept moving. That tiny clicking sound felt like justice learning to breathe. The judge ordered a full accounting, froze any transfer of the Maple Ridge house, removed my mother's authority pending final review, and confirmed me as temporary successor trustee. He also referred the promissory note and related transfer to the county prosecutor for review. My mother gasped as if he had slapped her. He had not. He had read. After that, my family started the campaign. Aunts called, cousins texted. People who had never visited Lily in the hospital suddenly knew what Lily would have wanted. Aunt Denise said I was tearing my mother apart. Uncle Raymond said Jason had children, and did I really want them homeless? My father left one voicemail saying I was punishing the living for the dead. I saved everything. My mother cornered me once in a Kroger cereal aisle beside a wall of bright cartoon boxes Lily would have loved. She smiled like we were still playing the old roles. "Claire," she said, "you look thin." I reached for oatmeal. She stepped closer. "You are making a terrible mistake. Family mistakes should stay in the family." I looked at the security camera dome over aisle 7, then at her. "This is not a family mistake," I said. "It is a financial crime with a dead child's name on it." Her smile vanished. "You always were dramatic." "No," I said. "I was useful. You confused the two." There was one afternoon when I almost stopped. It was after a settlement conference in a beige room that smelled like toner, old carpet, and cheap peppermint candy from a glass bowl nobody touched. My parents offered $40,000 if I would release the claim against the house and sign a confidentiality agreement. Jason added, through his attorney, that he was willing to forgive the family tension if I stopped embarrassing everyone. The mediator slid the paper across the table gently, as if a soft hand could make an insult less sharp. I read the number. $40,000. Less than 1/4 of what they stole. Less than the kitchen renovation Jason posted on Facebook 2 weeks after Lily's funeral. Less than the price my mother seemed to think my silence was worth. I looked at the release clause, the non-disparagement language, the paragraph that would have required me to withdraw any allegation of misconduct. Then I reached into my red binder and removed Lily's trial estimate, the trust statement, and the deed. I placed them in a row. The mediator stopped chewing his candy. My answer is no, I said, and every further offer must include full restitution, legal fees, interest, and a written admission that the funds belong to Lily. My mother made a small, offended sound. You want to humiliate us? No, I said. You already did that. I want the record corrected. That night, I backed up every file again. Cloud drive, external drive, encrypted folder, printed copy at Patricia's office. I scanned the fundraising page, Lily's oncology letters, the hospice invoice, the florist card my parents had sent, the screenshots from Maple Ridge, and the archived county deed. I numbered each document the way I numbered evidence at work, not because I expected drama, but because drama is what guilty people create when documents start behaving. The red binder got heavier. So did I, in a way that helped me stand. The final hearing came in November, 6 days before Thanksgiving. The courthouse windows were gray with cold rain, and the floors smelled like wax and damp shoes. Patricia arrived with 2 boxes, my red binder, and a sealed envelope from Marissa, Jason's wife. Marissa had left him in May. She met me at a diner off Interstate 70 with dark circles under her eyes and a folder in her hand. She said she had told herself the house was just my parents being generous because the truth would have made every breakfast in that kitchen taste like ash. Then she found a text thread on Jason's old tablet. Parents floated me the house money from some trust thing. Don't ask, lol. Don't ask. That was all he needed to know. He knew enough to laugh in the kitchen while Lily stood beside me in a knit cap. At the final hearing, the judge reviewed the bank records, the deed, the false note, Marissa's documents, and the tax filings that did not mention any legitimate loan repayment. My mother's attorney tried once more to make it emotional. Patricia made it arithmetic. The order came down clean. My mother was permanently removed as trustee. I was confirmed as successor trustee. The court imposed a constructive trust against the Maple Ridge property, ordered restitution of the diverted principal, interest, legal costs, and referred the matter to the prosecutor and State Fiduciary Oversight Division. Jason's house would be sold. My parents' accounts would be examined. The false promissory note would not be treated as a mistake. Jason stood up too fast. "This is insane," he said. "It was family money." The judge looked at him over the bench. "It was Lily Parker's money." 5 words. A whole courtroom heard them. My mother sat down as if someone had cut the strings inside her coat. My father stared at the table. Jason's face went red, then pale. For the first time in his life, nobody rushed to catch him. The fallout did not happen all at once. It arrived in envelopes and certified notices. The IRS opened an inquiry into the unreported transfer. The county prosecutor filed charges connected to falsified fiduciary documents and unlawful conversion of trust assets. My mother eventually took a plea to avoid prison, surrendered her role in every estate account she had ever touched, paid fines, and was ordered to perform community service at a legal aid clinic where poor parents asked for help navigating medical bills. That detail felt almost too precise. Life has a cruel sense of structure. My father sold his boat and then his business equipment. Their house did not disappear, but the porch lights went dark earlier, and the church people stopped asking my mother to organize fundraisers. Jason lost Maple Ridge, then his marriage, then his custody arrangement became supervised until he completed treatment. He blamed me for every consequence except the one that caused them, himself. I used the recovered money to create the Lily Grace Door Fund for families trying to access pediatric treatment not fully covered by insurance. Patricia handled the filings. I insisted on 2 safeguards: no family trustee with unchecked authority, and every withdrawal tied to a named medical invoice. The first family we helped was a mother named Elena and her son Mateo, who needed travel and trial costs in Pittsburgh. When the approval letter went out, I sat in my car and cried for the first time in 3 years. Not because Lily came back, she did not, because someone else got the door. Then came the call about Jason. By July, His drinking had turned from habit into collapse. People saw him asleep in his truck outside bars, yelling at bank tellers, showing up at Marissa's sister's house with his shirt misbuttoned and his eyes glassy. My parents called it stress. The doctors called it liver failure. The hospital waiting room at 2:17 a.m. smelled like disinfectant, old coffee, and fear. The vending machine buzzed in the corner. My father looked smaller than I remembered. My mother looked like a woman who had reached the end of every story she knew how to tell. The transplant coordinator was kind and precise. Jason was very sick. The waiting list was uncertain. A living donor could save time. Family members were often tested first. Donation had to be voluntary, fully informed, free of pressure. She said that last part twice. I appreciated her for it. The door had barely closed behind her before my mother turned to me. "Claire, you have to do this." There it was. Not an apology, not a reckoning, a command wearing the face of a plea. My father said, "He is your brother." I looked at him. "Lily was your granddaughter." He flinched. My mother started crying, but even her crying felt organized around Jason. She said he had made mistakes. She said people deserved second chances. She said I could not let him die because of old bitterness. Old bitterness. That is what they called a child in the ground. I remembered Lily asking why Grandma never came. I remembered the fundraiser held high in Jason's kitchen. I remembered the room laughing. I remembered the trust statement under my hand, the blank memo line, the number that had been enough. I stood up. My mother grabbed my wrist. "Please," she whispered, "you are his only match." I looked down at her hand. "No," I said. Her fingers tightened. "You cannot punish him for what happened to Lily." I bent close enough that only she and my father could hear me. "I am not punishing him," I said. "I am refusing to be used by the people who taught me my child's life was optional." The coordinator returned, saw my mother's hand on me, and stopped. "Is everything all right?" she asked. I peeled my mother's fingers away, one by one. "No," I said. "I am not consenting to evaluation." My mother made a sound I had never heard from her before, raw and animal, but I did not move. I picked up my bag. My father stood and blocked the aisle, not aggressively, just desperately, as if his body could become another family obligation I had to step around. "Claire," he said, "please, he might die." I looked at him for a long second. So did Lily. Then I gave my mother back her inheritance. Not my problem. I walked out under the white hospital lights, past the chapel, past the vending machines, past a janitor pushing a mop that squeaked every third step. Outside, dawn was just beginning to gray the edge of the parking garage. I sat in my car until my breathing slowed. I did not feel victorious. I did not feel cruel. I felt the strange, clean grief of a door closing correctly. Jason lived. 6 days later, he received a deceased donor liver after a status change. That matters to say because this is not a story about me killing my brother. I did not kill anyone. I simply refused to let my body become the next account my family drained without permission. Jason survived, but survival is not the same as escape. He left the hospital with a scar, a medication schedule, a sobriety mandate, no house, no marriage, and court-ordered restitution attached to wages he had not yet learned how to earn. My mother wanted that to be my fault too, but blame does not regenerate the way a liver does. Truth does not need your permission to keep working. A year later, the Lily Gray Store Fund helped its 18th child. Elena sent me a photo of Mateo standing on a porch in Pittsburgh after his last treatment cycle, holding a drawing he had made for me. It was a house with a yellow door. In the window, he had drawn a stick figure girl with wings, which should have felt sentimental, and maybe did, but I taped it beside Lily's original drawing anyway. Some doors are not for walking through, some are for remembering who was locked out. My parents still live in Fairview Heights. My mother attends church on Sundays and avoids the legal aid clinic whenever pediatric medical forms come across the desk. My father does not mention family loyalty anymore. Jason sends me a message every few months from a new number, usually around holidays, usually pretending to be sorry in a way that still centers himself. I do not answer. Silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes it is a locked account. I used to think blood made a family, then I thought loyalty did. Now I think family is simpler and harder than both. Family is who tells the truth when a lie would be easier. Family is who protects the child with no power in the room. Family is who does not call your suffering dramatic because your evidence is inconvenient. My grandfather knew that before I did. He built Lily a door in the form of a trust. My mother tried to brick it shut. I opened it for someone else. And if you are listening to this with a heavy chest because you know what it feels like to be the useful one, the fixer, the quiet account everyone withdraws from, hear me clearly. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Being related is not the same as being safe. And the day you stop handing people access to your life without authorization, they will call it cruelty because they no longer get to call it family. Let them. If this story reached you, tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. And if you believe quiet truth can be stronger than loud lies, subscribe for more stories like this one. Somewhere out there, another yellow door is waiting to open.